Welcome to the big number. I am Tom Haberstroh, and as always, I am joined by my man, your man, Dan Devine. Dan, how are you on this Wednesday morning?
Tom, I think we all knew this day was going to come. There would be a day where we would be talking about a historic scoring performance by one of the NBA's premier offensive talents. We knew that Bam Adebayo was going to score 83 points. It was just a matter of when. And the day has come. So we've got to crack it open. We've got to get into it, Tom.
Yeah, let's get into it. This week's big number is 83. That's the number of points that Bam Adebayo scored on Tuesday night.
83!
It's nuts, dude. It's nuts. I can't believe it. Even as we're recording this, I still can't believe it. Like we've found a wrinkle in time. We're in this like time warp where this isn't real. This feels a lot like, Dan, when Luca Doncic was traded to the Lakers, where you just keep on reminding yourself this wasn't some sort of fever dream. Even though he played like it was a fever dream, just like the greatest. I can't even imagine what it must be like to go into a game and halfway through it be like, I think I can maybe score 100 points in this game. You know, like Bam Adebayo had 83 against the Washington Wizards on Tuesday night in front of his home crowd. No Tyler Hero, no Norman Powell, nor Khalil Ware. It was just the Bam Adebayo show from start to finish. A big hug afterwards with Eric Spoelstra. He took the podium with Asia Wilson, where it was like, this was a made-for-Hollywood TV movie when you consider that Bam Adebayo grew up in a single-wide trailer with his mom walking 2 miles to work every day. And Bam Adebayo is now the second highest scorer in NBA history behind Wilt Chamberlain. He surpasses Kobe Bryant, 81 points. Wilt, Bam, Kobe. That was his
Big
post,
three.
Bam Adebayo, the big three, as we all know. So here it is. Wilt Chamberlain had 100. Bam Adebayo had 83. Kobe, 81. Wilt, 78. Luca, 73, along with David Thompson. And Wilt again. And Damian Lillard was 71. So, Dan, take me back, because you wrote this amazing column last night, a reaction to the Bam Adebayo game, 83 points. Take me through your night. I want to know, when did it occur to you, this is happening. I'm going to have to get into writing mode here at midnight and go write a recap about Bam Adebayo. Previous scoring high was 41, had 83. So when did it start occurring to you?
So a little peek behind the curtain about something that I think is not going to happen now. I was going to be watching, or starting with Spurs Celtics, because the idea was to sort of have an eye toward a Derek White thing for later in the week. I don't think that's going to happen now. So like once I'm watching that game,
walk through the mind of Dan Devine is like, do I write about 83 or Derek White? I want to write about Derek White's, his rise later in the week. Yes.
Yeah, well, it's more of a how many hours you got in the day type of thing. And once it became clear this was happening, I was like, all right, I got to not do that. But when it was, he has 31 in the first quarter, said, okay, I'm going to need to flip over there and see what's going on with that. And then it's 43 at halftime. I'm like, all right. And it wasn't like a 30-point blowout. Like the Wizards were close enough that it was Bam was going to get real minutes. And then as you go through the third quarter, and it has like the sort of steal fast break dunk that gets him to 62 at the end of 3. I'm like, well, this is already preposterous. It is a new Heat franchise record. It's more than the 61 points that LeBron scored against the Bobcats. We're going back to Bobcats era for the previous high scoring game in Heat history. I blogged about it. But that you had. So I'm like, this could be real. Like if Spoelstra brings him back at the start of the fourth, maybe this is real. And then he just didn't go out of the game. I was like, all right, well, this is happening. And then seeing people catch on to it over the course of that fourth quarter, especially, like as the number kept going up and more eyes kept going to it, and NBC did their live look in, and just seeing like the reactions it was engendering, and the sort of the dawning lack of understanding. The thing that it was my favorite response to it. The Rockets beat the Raptors, and shortly after in his post-game presser, somebody asks Ime Udoka, like, hey, did you hear that Bam scored 83? And he's like, yeah. So the first thing that goes through your mind is how. And no disrespect to him, but just kind of like how he plays his game. So he made like 6 threes and like 40 free throws. So, kind of tells the tale. And also, the Washington Wizards. And it was like, yeah, no, you kind of need a perfect storm. You need a confluence of events for it all to come together. And boy, did it ever come together for Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, I was settling in for the Blazers game. It was Blazers last night against the Charlotte Hornets, a 10 o'clock tip Eastern, my time. And so I got a chance to watch a bunch of the Bam game because it was earlier in the night. And then I found out from my producer that Dame was going to join the broadcast in the third quarter. And I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. We're going to get like live reaction from Damian Lillard, who had 71, who also took 22 threes in his game to get to 71. He made 13 of them. Talk about that later. But Dame was like, he was great. In the third quarter, he joined Kevin Calabro and Lamar Hurd and was like, yeah, I taught Bam everything he knows. And this goes back to the Olympic days where they struck up a really good friendship. And it was great to hear Dame just also kind of pick up our melted brains and just be like, wait, what? Bam Adebayo had 83? This is nuts. So there's the photo, the Wilt Chamberlain 100-point photo, classic, iconic, Bam with the 83 at his locker in Miami. I'm happy for Heat fans. I'm happy for Bam. Happy for all of the people who were, insistent that Bam Adebayo is supremely underrated. And if he just decided to score a little bit more or turn the sliders a little bit more to hero ball, alpha status offensively, he could be an MVP caliber player. I remember Coop Moorhead, my guy in Miami, he's like, don't let this dissuade the fact that he was already going to be a Hall of Famer. Like, this is only solidifying his Hall of Fame case. But if you go on this trajectory of Bam Adebayo in his career, that's a Hall of Famer. And so for all the people who have been Bam stans this whole time, congratulations. You are now a fan of a guy who scored 83 points in a game. When I go back to the fact that he entered this game with his previous high was 41 points, I had to look this up. I am such a sicko, Dan. By the way, I had to wear this. I woke up today and I had to wear my Basketball Reference shirt because of how much time I have spent in the past 12 hours. I haven't slept, okay? Since the 83-point game, just trying to find all of these crazy statistics and trinkets about Bam Adebayo. And I tracked over 3,000 games. Okay, 3,000 of the highest scoring games in NBA history. And I wanted to see, of all the players who have had 50 or more in an NBA game, what was their second highest scoring night? What was their second highest game? Because Bam had 41 entering this game as his career high, and then he had 83, a difference of 42 points. And it turns out, yes, that is absolutely a record. For any 50-point guy, I can't vouch for like the largest increase in your first and second scoring nights, but I just looked up all 3,500 games in which a player scored more than 40 points or something like that, tracked it, and I have it for every 50-point score. So here you have it. David Thompson, 73 points. His next highest was 44, a difference of plus 29. Tony Delk, who among us could forget the Tony Delk game where he had 53? His previous high was 27. Next highest guy was 27. Score net was 27, sorry. An increase of 26. Donovan Mitchell had never had a 50-point game until he had 71, an increase of 23. And where were you for the Malachi Flynn game? Where were you, Dan? Because we none of us could forget the Malachi when he went for 50, right?
Yeah, I think that one I think might have been a fever dream. We should double check the numbers on that one. But yeah, if I remember correctly, that was like cup of coffee end of the season in Detroit. Maybe that was what kick-started the turnaround in the Pistons. It was like, oh, if somebody can wear a uniform of ours and score 50, maybe the future for us looks awfully bright. But you are a sicko. That is preposterous work to do in the wee hours of the morning. But I'm glad you did it because I think like when I looked at the all-time records, right? Like there are now 11 players in NBA history that have scored at least 70 in a game. And you look at the other 10 and they're all like top 50 all-time scorers in terms of points per game, right? Like, your Wilts and then Luca and Embiid, and even like Devin Booker as like a up on the all-time list. David Robinson is I think like 51st on the all-time NBA scoring list. So like right around where you like that upper percentile of players that have ever played in the NBA. And Bam, as of this morning, after the fact, is 216th on the all-time points per game scoring list. He's averaging just over 16.1 points per game in his career, which, by the way, like very good, right? And like 41 being your career high, good career high. But it does, like, when I was going through that, I'm like, well, this is very clearly one of these things is not like the other. And this so much further down in terms of the all-time scoring leaders list, it made me think of like, is this like the Tony Delk game of 8 70-point games, which is a weird thing to contextualize. It's like the Corey Brewer 50-point game of 70-point games. But that's kind of what Bam has been, because like he said this after the game, like, I wasn't considered a scorer when I came into the league. Like, he was considered a screen roll, offensive rebound, putback kind of garbage man, like an engine room offensive player, and it's like built little by little out into the course of his career, where like then he's an elbow dribble handoff hub, and then he'll take some mid rangers. Yeah, he'll occasionally face up and drive, or like a fake keeper and get to the rim. Yeah, okay, he'll maybe take a corner three here or there, and like to be able to shoulder that kind of usage, to be able to actually like just take 40 shots in a game is like, that is a level of offensive capacity, frankly, that like I don't know that anybody ever would have assumed that Bam Adebayo could have at the NBA level. And again, you need everything to line up just right. Certain guys out of the lineup, certain opponents, certainly, and then some other things to go right early. But like, what results is, oh my God, this guy can score 83 points in a game, which then I think does sort of expand your horizons of who, because I don't know how many names you'd have had to go down on your mental Rolodex to get to Bam Adebayo as the guy that was going to get, between Kobe and Wilt. So then it sort of expands your horizons of who the heck could do this too. Like it kind of opens up a whole new world of possibilities potentially.
I especially enjoy Bill Simmons tweeting through it, where he was like, if I did a draft of how many players I would take to score 83 points, I don't think Bam Adebayo would be in the top 50 in today's NBA. And that's a fair point. Is just like, he's not a selfish dude. This season, his scoring high was 32 and he dropped 83. So like, there are a lot of single-digit games, as you pointed out in your piece for yahoosports.com. Go check it out. Like, he was struggling to break double digits for multiple games this season, and then he just had 83. But as we talk about Malachi and David Thompson, this is all fun. Yes, here's Bill Simmons. If you did a 60-point game draft in September, Bam would not have been one of the first 50 picks. Okay. So, let's try to get up that if we can get the graphic of the top scoring games of all time, with Wilt and Luca and Dame, because I think this is all fun and games, what we did just now, saying that Bam Adebayo, what a story, how cool is that? But let's be honest here, Dan. I'm going to come out and say it. Zero in on me here. I'm making sure that the producers clip this right here. Dan, I'm going to go out and say it, that Bam Adebayo's 83-point game deserves an asterisk. Okay? 43 free throws? Are you kidding me? Against a Washington Wizards team that's tanking, outright tanking. Didn't have Tyler Hero in the game. Didn't have Norm Powell in the game. Khalil Ware. I think it's fraudulent. I think it deserves an asterisk. Okay? Now, Wilt's 100. Wilt's 100, Dan. Well, actually, it wasn't even televised. Right? So, like... All right, so Wilt's 100, did it really even happen? We don't have any proof. Did it actually happen? Keep your third eye open. I think, and also, by the way, when people are like, oh, Bam Adebayo's team, they were fouling and just letting the Wizards score just so they could get Bam more points. It's exactly what happened in the Wilt game, by the way. The Warriors, his Philadelphia Warriors, were fouling and just trying to quicken up the possessions to get more points for Wilt Chamberlain. Fraudulent, asterisk. I'm going to say it. Wilt's 100 deserves an asterisk. Kobe's 81. Well,
ethical.
If the opposing coach decided to double team him. He's not getting 81. For whatever reason, the opposing coach on the Toronto Raptors decided not to double team a guy who's rambling towards 80 points in a game, decided to single coverage him for the entire game. If any other coach was coaching that defense, they would have double teamed and triple teamed and quadruple teamed him. Mike James was talking about it after the game in the oral history at ESPN, saying, like, I have no idea why we single teamed him every single possession down the stretch. So Sam Mitchell, if he wasn't coaching the game, Kobe's not getting 81. Let's all agree on that. And by the way, last 7 points of those, all coming at the free throw line with the game in hand. Asterisk. Wilt 78, triple overtime. Do it in regulation next time. Asterisk. David Thompson 73. Don't get me started on this one. This is a big fat asterisk. Did you know this one was in the last game of the regular season because George Gervin had the scoring title and he had to make sure that he stole the scoring title from George Gervin, Iceman. And so he went out. David Thompson had 73 points and he got the scoring title in a losing effort, Dan. Asterisk. If you can't win the game, you don't deserve to have your scoring record. So David Thompson also an asterisk.
David Robinson 71-point game, also final game of the season in a push for the scoring title.
Exactly. Thank you, Dan. Asterisk, fraudulent, disqualified, also against the Clippers.
Just general
this
asterisk.
Seems like a triple asterisk, last game of the season against the Clippers, and you were gunning for the scoring title over Shaq, and you got the scoring title, but also you got an asterisk. I'm sorry, David, the Admiral, you're not going to be without an asterisk. Discredit. Luca's 73. Luca's 73. This was pre-Adam Silver, the Referee Reform Act of 2024, when they decided mid-season to not have all these free throws, and the referees were calling everything. Maybe Luca tried doing it after the Referee Reform Act of 2024. I seem to remember that was before the league office decided to change the rules on the fly mid-season. Asterisk. Same goes for Embiid when he had 70. That was before the Referee Reform Act of 2024 when they decided that referees were calling too many fouls. And by the way, that was in Philly, and one of the referees on that game for Embiid when he scored 70 is from Philadelphia. Okay? 23 free throws. Interesting. Okay. Devin Booker. Dan, Devin Booker, when he had 70, you're already laughing because you know it's a total fraud. Devin Booker, in that game, they lost by 10 when he had 70 points. Dan, you can't have a scoring record in a losing effort, especially when it's not double digits. We know that from David Thompson. Doesn't count if you lose in the game. So Devin Booker, his team was 22-50 heading into this game. I'm sorry, when you're 28 games under 500, you should be abolished from any record book after that. By the way, the second best player on that team, it wasn't Smush Parker, but it was a 46-year-old Leandro Barbosa. Asterisk! Donovan Mitchell had 71 in an overtime game. He's never had over 50 in a game other than this. Without the overtime, Dan, I don't think he's getting that 70-point burger. So guess what? Asterisk. And Damian Lillard, don't get me started on this fraud. He only had 18 points on twos, ethical twos, only 18 points on those twos. Get out of here, Dame. Yeah, I said it. Asterisk on that one. Elgin Baylor, he had 71. Guess what? It was against the New York Knicks team that was 12 games worse than the worst team in the NBA that year. Not even a real team, the Knicks, back then. 12 games worse in the standings than the next worst team. So there you have it. Oh no. Dan, did I just put an asterisk on every big scoring night in NBA history? Oh no.
I think what we've learned, Tom, is that the true frauds are us. We are the ones who deserve the asterisk for appending so much meaning to the theoretical ethics of how you put the ball in the basket, and for kind of working ourselves into a shoot by arguing that scoring 83 points in a game isn't cool and good. Like, I understand that part of the era we live in is that everything that happens needs an immediate counterfactual and argument for why it is actually bad and not good. I get it. I participate in it sometimes. I'm trying to less as I grow up and need to sort of lance the boils of my life and, like, drain the cysts of negativity out. But maybe, maybe we could appreciate that this is just a super weird, like surreal,
Yeah.
ludicrous, unpredictable thing that happened that is like a complete lightning in a bottle, will never happen again. Preposterous. Why you watch sports for weird outcomes kind of thing. And that if you're going to like look at the karma of it, as people talk about what is ethical and what is not, as you mentioned, and as Nikias Duncan wrote in a really good piece at Yahoo Sports this morning, like if you are talking about a guy who is about the right stuff, like a perpetually sacrificial player for an organization that prioritizes being about the name on the front of the jersey instead of the name on the back of the jersey, who is like defense first, offense third, and has had to retrofit what his game is, not in service of his own numbers and production, but in service of like the whole and the collective. You cannot find a better version of that in today's NBA than Bam Adebayo, which is why, by the way, Eric Spoelstra was willing to do all the silly stuff that he did in the last, 5-10 minutes of this game to like get this guy who deserves, the one night that's about him. Spoelstra was willing to make it about him to that degree. Like, yeah, we'll challenge a block charge call with 3 minutes left in the game or whatever to see if we can get you an extra possession. We'll call for intentional fouls to try to get more possessions in the game. I'll leave you out there. I'm going to let you go until you are absolutely dog tired, and we're going to like let this go as far as we can. Eric, and you've seen Spo up close and personal way more than I have, but that is an intense dude who, generally speaking, does not smile that broadly. The look he gave Bam when he came to the bench last night and the hug he wrapped him up with was like the most nakedly warm and positive and emotional thing that I've ever seen out of Eric Spoelstra. And like that matters. Like there's a reason why you're willing to kind of, whatever, complicate the game or whatever, or maybe make it into not a real basketball game, as Brian Keefe put it. Like, and by the way, if anybody should have a sense of what not a real basketball game is, it is the coach of the Washington Wizards. But as he put it last night, it's for that guy. It's for the guy that deserves that, has earned that over the course of his career. He got to 43 by halftime basically on his own. He got to 62 at the end of 3, basically, within the bounds of the game. When you're within arm's reach of history, go out and try to do whatever you need to do to get it. That's kind of where I land on it. And
teaming him at the end of the game in the backcourt, they were quadruple teaming him in the backcourt. I've never seen that. I've never seen that in an NBA game where the Wizards were like, we're going to send 3 extra guys to defend this guy, make sure he doesn't get the ball. And he still got the ball. And because he was always going downhill and because of his handle at 6'10", if that, he's really hard to stay in front of when he wants to get to the cup. And so he preyed on that the entire night against the young Washington Wizards team. And yes, let's celebrate it. And the whole point of the asterisk conversation that we just did, the whole point is you can put an asterisk on everything. If you look hard enough, you can find a reason to discredit every single record in sports. You can, whether it's baseball, football, basketball. You can look in if you want to. You can find a reason to tear that record down. We can do it with every single one of the big scoring nights, the big accomplishments in the NBA. And if it's so easy to score 83 points in today's NBA, why isn't everybody doing it? Why isn't everyone doing it? Why was it Bam Adebayo? Because he decided I can't be stopped, and he was on a heater of all heaters in that game. So I just say, just like I wrote that the Oklahoma City Thunder asterisk title, it deserves an asterisk. We can play that game for every freaking title in NBA history, and we can do it for every scoring feat in NBA history. I just did it, and it took me a couple minutes before the show to like jot down what was weird and crazy and odd about that game and what was the league like back then. I had 6 other games on Wilt that I was like, it happened during an era where they were playing like 170 possessions a game, right?
Yeah, right.
And no one could hit a shot. And so every record deserves context, sure. But on this Wednesday morning, I think it's afternoon now when we're taping, Man, it feels weird. It feels strange, and it feels increasingly cynical to just tear this Bam Adebayo story apart because we want Kobe to have that 81, which isn't even a record. This isn't even the record, right? It reminds me a lot of Roger Maris when he had 61, and everyone wanted Babe Ruth to have the record, and we had to tear down Roger Maris when he broke the record. And the dude almost got murdered for this because everyone was idolizing and worshiping at the altar of Babe Ruth. And it's like, yo, records are meant to be broken. And in this case, it wasn't even a record. Wilt has the record. And yes, it was a game in which they were fouling to make sure that Wilt got more possessions, and he's 2 feet taller than everybody else. But it's still the record. And Bam Adebayo still has 83 last time I checked. And by the way, Dan, this might be surpassed later in the season. Like, you might see a lot of guys being like, hey, Bam Adebayo can get 83. I'm going to go try to get 83. And that might be the thing that gets Adam Silver to get all the owners to actually correct tanking and to do some actual tanking reform. If like the rest of the season is just guys gunning for 100 and actually coming close to it. Wouldn't that be crazy? Dan, we've got lots of crazy stuff to get into. A deeper dive, drilling down further in Bam Adebayo's historic 83-point night in which his previous high was 41 points. Just absolutely bonkers. We got 3 little numbers coming up after the break to drill down even deeper on Bam's night. Yes, I am wearing a basketball reference shirt right now because, yeah, they deserve all the shine for all the NBA fans who are trying to go in and figure out how can I tear down this 83-point game or how can I build it up. Thank you, StatHead and Basketball Reference. And much of those numbers that I'm giving you earlier in this program is because of stathead.com. Go subscribe. And also subscribe to this show if you haven't done it so already. Go subscribe also to the Yahoo NBA YouTube channel, Yahoo NBA, where you can find the Dunker Spot, Kevin O'Connor Show, right here alongside the big number. Dan, got 3 little numbers about Bam Adebayo's 83. What's the first one?
First little number is 6. That is how many players in the play-by-play era, which goes back to the 1996-97 season, have had a 30-point quarter. Only 6 players have done it. Kobe did it twice, although, funnily enough, not in the 81-point game. He did it in 2 different games. And the other one's Carmelo in 2008, Clay when he set the record for points in a quarter, 37 against the Kings in 2015, Kevin Love back with those run-and-gun Cavs in 2016, and Karl Anthony Towns against the San Antonio Spurs in 2022. So that is 2 of the 11 highest scoring players in NBA history in Kobe and Carmelo, the second greatest three-point shooter of all time in Klay Thompson, 2 of the best big man shooters of all time in Kevin Love and Karl Anthony Towns. And now Bam Adebayo with a 31-point first quarter against the Wizards on Tuesday night, which set the stage for everything. Like, he made 5 threes in the first quarter, one of them like a 27-foot pull-up in transition. And when you see that happening, it's like, well, all right, I guess tonight could wind up being something weird, something special, because if Bam, who is somebody who basically never took 3-pointers, now is taking, I think, 8 in the first quarter and 5, now knocking down 5 in the opening quarter. That's the way you can kind of roll up points pretty quick. And then, if they got to start closing out harder on the 3-point line, opens up the driving game, and then, the world's your oyster. And that's kind of what got everything moving for Bam Adebayo. The historically elite first quarter. Only 6 players now have had a 30-point quarter, and he's in the play-by-play era, and he's one of them.
Yeah, Dan, this is my big point after this game is you would have thought, because of the discourse was so toxic about this game, you would have thought he had 31 in the fourth quarter with all the fouls and the shenanigans. No.
Yes.
His first quarter was when he was lighting them up, absolutely torching them in 17 different ways. And he's had 10 buckets, 5 of which from downtown, like you mentioned, and only 6 made free throws in that first quarter. 25 of his 31 points were just getting buckets. So I'm out on this whole, like, did you see the fourth quarter and the way that it was not a basketball game? You can't watch that first quarter and say there have been more than 10 guys who have been as dominant as Bam Adebayo. You can't. Like, that was an all-time scoring just supernova in that first quarter. The way that he was destroying the Washington Wizards, pulling up in transition, had everything in his bag. And that's why at the end of the game, he can say, Wilt meet Kobe, is because he got off to a 31-point first quarter. So yeah, I you can say the last quarter in the last few minutes was unethical or wasn't basketball, but that's kind of what the end of the Philly game when Wilt had 100 and Kobe when he had 81, it wasn't real basketball either. It wasn't pure. It wasn't ethical. And guess what? That's what happens in these games. So yeah, 31 points in the first quarter. That to me was just outrageous. And that's when everyone was like, I got to watch this game.
To your point, our second little number this week is 26, which is how many personal fouls Bam Adebayo drew on Tuesday night, according to the NBA's box score. And the bulk of those came in the first three quarters. I think more than half of them in the first half, 15 or 16 in the first half. And again, I wrote about this on Tuesday night in the wee hours. I went back and watched every single one of those foul calls. And there's a couple, like Brian Keefe had complained after the game that, he's getting like touch fouls 40 feet away from the basket. In the final, 3 minutes, you could make a couple of arguments about stuff like that. For the most part, though, what happened was Bam Adebayo got the ball. A Wizard, chiefly Alex Sarr or Tristan Vucevic, closed out on him, could not stop him from driving wherever he wanted to go, couldn't body him up when he got where he wanted to go, and then fouled him. Or a smaller defender that he drew on a switch or by rim running and sealing a guard deep under the rim, couldn't deal with him, so they slapped down on his arms and they fouled him. And I can't, again, it's not the most exciting YouTube content in the history of the world, but if you look in the story that I wrote, I promise you, I pulled all of the videos of the fouls. He got hammered on most of these drives because they just had no other recourse. And this, I think, goes to the point that we were talking about a little bit here in terms of Bam's growth in his game. Again, this is from Nikias's story this morning. Bam had 16 drives to the basket on Tuesday night. That was a career high. And 14 isolation possessions, which is the second most of his career. 78 touches, his most of the season. This is just, he wasn't able to do all this stuff earlier in his career. And he's built to the point where if you don't have a real defender able to handle him physically or a plan for how to handle him, which the Wizards, as the worst defense in the NBA, and I think 27th or 28th in opposing free throw rate, don't have a plan most of the time for what they want to do defensively. This can happen. He drew a shooting foul on more than 29% of his half-court possessions on Tuesday, according to Synergy. Season average for him is 12.9. And the league lead for players who played a lot of possessions is Jimmy Butler at under 21. So Bam, it was a historically ridiculous ability to draw fouls, but he was earning them. It looked, to my eyes, at least for the most part. This wasn't until the last couple of minutes, maybe, when he's already got 75 or 77. This is not, he's getting fat because the refs are giving it to him. It's, he is forcing the issue, forcing the action on the Wizards, and they just had absolutely no recourse against him.
To that point, Dan, I went back and watched all of those 23 fouls that led to free throws by Bam Adebayo, just like you did. And I tracked how many of those 43 free throw attempts came from him flopping to the ground. 23 shooting fouls. 23 fouls in which Bam Adebayo went to the free throw line. Okay. How many of those 23 fouls had Bam Adebayo fallen to the ground, a la Joel Embiid or Jalen Brunson, Luca Doncic, etc.? Of the 23, there were 5. 5 that he fell to the ground. It was 18 times of those 23 that Bam Adebayo stood on his own 2 feet, got fouled, and wasn't flopping to the ground. And of those 5, he got knocked down pretty hard to get sent to the ground. And it wasn't this case where he's just flopping everywhere to try to get the foul call. This is a guy who was on a mission to get to the cup, and he was going to go through people, and there were charges, right? He was going to go through people, or he was going to try to get to the cup. And if you're in his way and you're going to play illegal defense on him, he's going to get to the cup. And so if he draws contact and he's not falling on the ground and flopping and trying to get these calls, I don't have a problem with it. The Wizards couldn't guard him flat out. That's why they were triple teaming him in the backcourt, because they couldn't stop him. So yeah, when we talk about the unethical 43 free throws, go back and watch the tape, man. This was a guy who was unguardable, and the Washington Wizards had no answer for him. And that's why you saw him getting quadruple teamed at the end of this game, because they could not stop him. So, yeah, 5 of the 23 ended up with him on the ground. And by the discourse, you would have thought that he was just flopping everywhere, left and right, and just selling every call and flopping to the ground. And that just wasn't the case. And so if you watch the game, you'd have a much different appraisal of those 43 free throw attempts. By the way, he had 36 of 43. That's like 85%. Like, we're talking about the 43 and not the 36, which is a record. Both of those are records, yes. But for a guy who's like a 75% career three-point shooter who went 36 for 43, he earned it. He earned it, right? So if he was his normal self at 75%, he's not breaking Kobe's record, quote-unquote record there. He's actually falling short of it. So he earned that by making 36 of 43 free throws. So, dude, it was an incredible night. 7 of 22 from downtown. He made 7 threes. That's crazy. Bam Adebayo made 7 threes in a game, a career high. So he played outrageous, but everyone who has a big night like that, they're playing out of their mind, and that's the case with Bam Adebayo.
And that's going to get us to our third and final little number this week, Tom, because it's 22, which is the number of three-point attempts that Bam Adebayo took. The only players who have ever taken more threes in an NBA game than that are Stephen Curry, James Harden, and Klay Thompson, who are first, second, and fourth on the all-time at three-point list. Bam Adebayo's got a little ways to go to catch up to them on that list. He had never attempted more than 15 threes in a season through the first 6 years of his career. And it's a kind of like an origin story for us. This is all coming full circle. On the very first episode of The Big Number, all the way back in October of 2024, we talked about like theoretical stretch fives, guys, big men who in preseason were, test driving a three-point shot, seeing if they could expand their range in their game. And the guy we centered in on was Bam Adebayo, because he was averaging at that time, it was 5.8 three-point attempts per 36 minutes in the preseason. And we had this kind of discussion. Could he be somebody that would expand his game out? Could DeAndre Ayton, is Domantas Sabonis going to be that kind of guy? But it came from Bam. And after last night, Bam Adebayo is averaging 6 three-point attempts per 36 minutes for this season. And he has now had nearly as many makes this year, 101, as he had in his entire career before this season, 102. So it took us about a season and a half from that initial episode. But the big number, not wrong, just early. Bam Adebayo has become a stretch five after a fashion, and he used that to his advantage in a big way, to a big piece of NBA history.
Yeah, a guy who's worked tirelessly, and he talked about it after the game, or A'ja Wilson talked about it too, is just how hard he works at his game, and he deserves it, man. Like, he's worked himself to be a legitimate three-point threat, shooting 33% this season from downtown, which is basically a point per shot. You're not going to complain when you're scoring a point per field goal attempt. If a guy was shooting 48% on twos, you wouldn't be like, hey, that guy needs to stop. It's the same points per play. It's the same output if he's shooting 33% on threes. So it's a good shot for him. Last night, he came out on fire, and without him adding his three-point shot and spending those hours in the gym and working at it and trusting it, he's not having the 83-point game. It's plain and simple. So credit to Bam Adebayo for working on his expansion of his game. And I can't wait to see what this does for a guy who has seen it. Like, seeing is believing. I could go out and get 83. I know people are probably going to say, oh, what's next? What's the encore? I genuinely don't know what Bam Adebayo looks like going forward. I don't. Like, is this going to click something into place that the organization had envisioned, that he envisioned, but just couldn't quite have everything aligned, and then suddenly he's a totally different player? I don't know. But this guy, again, at the top, we talked about, it's one of the great stories in the NBA, how he had came from rags to riches, this guy who had figured out a way to get to the NBA, thrive in the NBA, and become one of the great players of a great organization, championship-winning organization in Miami. And look, the guy, since February 1st, is second in plus minus in the NBA. His on-off splits are outrageously impactful. You look at Bam Adebayo's impact on both ends of the floor, especially on the defensive end. He's one of the best handful of players in the NBA, and last night legitimized it, where the impact stats say this guy's a top 10 player in the league, and now he's got the scoring chops to like add to that. This guy, as ethical as it comes, like you said, he's a great story. Someone who's not a selfish dude who just went out and scored 83. Who, in terms of winning, this guy does a lot of winning, and yeah, I can't think of a more deserving guy in terms of all the work that he's put in to have this kind of recognition. So shout out to Bam Adebayo. Any
And
last thoughts here?
Real quick on that, Tom, is just that contextualizing the Heat, right? They're now 10-4 since the trade deadline, third in offense, third in defense over that span. And after winning last night, they are up to a tie for fifth in the East with the Toronto Raptors. So like objects in the rearview mirror may be closer than they appear for the top four teams in the East. I don't know that they've got enough opportunity to get up to a top four seed, but I don't think anybody's going to be particularly excited to see a version of the Heat that has been this good on both ends of the floor, particularly now that we know that Bam can go score 83 points in a game.
It's nuts. It's nuts. I said this was the craziest thing to happen in the NBA since the Luca Doncic trade. And so for something on court, this has got to be one of the most unlikely, surprising basketball feats in NBA history. I mean, I hate to close it out there with a hot take, but like for a guy who scored 41 as his previous high, the largest gap between his first and second highest scoring game of his career, you'd have a lot of reason to believe that was the most surprising on-court achievement in NBA history. 83 points from Bam Adebayo. Wow, I can't believe it. We're going to talk about Luca Doncic and the Lakers and their big wins recently coming up after the break. We're going to talk about Austin Reaves, Luca getting another signature win this week. So much happened on Tuesday night that we can't get to in this show. But one thing I feel like our audience is probably going to want to know more about is this Luca Doncic. Austin Reaves gets another big win. The Minnesota Timberwolves, this time succumbing to the Luca AR lineup without LeBron James. The Lakers are now 10-2 this season when they don't play with LeBron James, but you have Luca Doncic and Austin Reaves in uniform. There are a lot of reasons why the Lakers are winning with those two guys in the lineup, primarily because they're two of the best players in the NBA, and they're offensively skewed players. And when you can have a locked-in DeAndre Ayton and more minutes for Marcus Smart and more 3-and-D guys on the roster, Luke Kennard showing out, when you have more of those guys, role players on the floor around two hyper-efficient, heliocentric stars offensively, good things tend to happen. And I think the Lakers do need to kind of figure out, how do we maximize the big three, LeBron, Luca, and Austin Reaves? But for now, with LeBron sideline, I think they'll take this. The way that the Lakers are playing lately without LeBron, that's what you want to see as a Lakers fan, is like that they're not losing ground in the standings. They're only gaining ground even without LeBron on the floor. So Dan, 120-106 against Minnesota. Look, Anthony Edwards had one of his worst games of the season, if not the worst output of the season. So how much of that is Ant just being cold in LA, and how much of it is the way that they were defending him? Great win for the Lakers after another great win earlier this week against the Knicks. So yeah, what say you about this Laker revival?
Yeah, I think it's the knock on the Lakers, and it's something I wrote about earlier this week. Yahoo Sports is that they've kind of been like a tale of two teams, and there's the version of them that, you know, the top line numbers say, you know, top 10 offense, MVP candidate. We've got guys that can score 20. You know, we're the best clutch team in the NBA. We're on a 50-win pace. But you look at like the point differential and the defensive rating and the on-offs with LeBron and Luca and Austin Reaves, and it said like this under the hood, this does not look like a contender. Like one lens says this team should be making has the chance to make a deep playoff run. Another lens says this looks like an also-ran that might struggle again to get out of the first round of the playoffs. And so like them picking up two real wins over good teams, one in the Knicks that had beaten them earlier in the season, and then the Wolves, who obviously the Wolves drummed them out of the postseason last year, but now the Lakers are 3-0 against the Wolves this season. Interestingly enough, LeBron missed all three of those games because two of them came at the very beginning of the season when he was working through the sciatica situation. It gives the Lakers some proof of concept that yeah, okay, it's not just when we face a good team we crumble, right? Like we're not flat track bullies that are just beaten up on the lower lights of the league. And we talked about it before, that idea that there's kind of two Lakers teams here. There's the Luca AR team and there's the LeBron team. I mean, going to the Lakers need to like get rid of LeBron right now, like excise him right now. Obviously, that's a bit too much. I think LeBron could certainly have a lot of value in a postseason situation, but I think aggressive staggering is something they're going to have to think about. The JJ Redick's going to have to really put into consideration, like, how do we get the most? Like, is it offense first, kind of tilted lineups around Reaves and Luca? Is it defense more like size and bully ball with LeBron, which is something some people, smart people that follow the Lakers have kind of been considering and discussing. The idea that they are like now, I think the number is plus 98 in 426 minutes with Luca and Austin Reaves on the floor and LeBron off it. That's plus 12.2 points per 100, elite point differential. The offense has been humming. The defense, as you mentioned, when you get more Smart, more Jake LaRavia, more Ayton or Jackson Hayes as a sort of rim runner, and you get able to get a little bit more like size, like lower usage, more size, more activity on the perimeter. Like, it just sort of simplifies everything for everybody. And I think the idea being, this is the best we can kind of do with what we've got right now. In the last 25 games, the Lakers are 16-9, 5th on offense and 11th on defense. And like, whether that's going to be good enough against the monsters up at the top of the West, I don't know. But I think we've always understood this is kind of an in-between moment for the Lakers as they figure out like what happens with LeBron this summer. What does the roster look like as they try to keep cap space open for 2027, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not what it's gonna be, what the ideal vision of how they're going to build around Luca as their signature star. But like, if with what we got now, this looks something is maybe like the best that they've been able to look in a long time. And like, top 5 offense, top 10 defense with a healthy Luca, healthy Reaves, LeBron, if he gets back into the picture healthy, like, that's something to think about come the postseason.
Yeah, last year with the 3 guys on the floor, they were outscored by 24 points with Austin Reaves, LeBron, and Luca on the floor. They just could not figure out how to make that work. A lot of that was on defense. They just were not able to defend and stop anybody when they had all 3 of those guys who are negatives defensively. And at their best, maybe you can say Luca and LeBron, and when Austin Reaves is just drawing charges left and right, that they can kind of tread water. But at this point, I just don't think that the Lakers can make a deep playoff run with all 3 of those guys. And the way that they are at different points of their careers, I just don't see it. I think last year is probably going to be more of the same story as we saw last year in this year. I do think that the Lakers are probably better off without LeBron James at this stage of his career, just because of the redundancy of skill sets, not because LeBron is a negative player, but because the law of diminishing returns. At some point, you can't have 3 super offensively skewed guys as ball dominant guys who aren't super synergized on their skill sets and make deep playoff runs. It just doesn't happen. All the great teams with great trios who won championships or got to the NBA Finals, they had two-way abilities. And I just don't think that the Lakers right now, as the roster constitutes, I just don't see how they're going to be able to slap this together in time for the postseason and make it all work. I think it's probably going to be like we saw last year in the first round out. So I think it's a great win against, like you said, 3-0 against the Minnesota Timberwolves, locked in the tiebreaker there. And it's going to probably come down to something like that along with the Houston Rockets. So a signature win for the Lakers, certainly, and something that Lakers fans would love to see. But Bam Adebayo scored 83 points. And so for some reason, I feel like they're more talking about that for a guy who scored a lot of points for another team instead of focusing on how well the Lakers did on Tuesday night. Dan, I don't know what to expect from here on out. I could see Luca, speaking of Luca, like going for the record again, and we might just see this copycat league of guys just trying to gun for Bam Adebayo's record. It might just happen. Jason Tatum might do it. We just saw him return. We didn't talk much about that,
Right.
but sure enough, that will become a lightning rod story. Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics going forward. Stay tuned for big numbers going next week. We do this every Wednesday. Please subscribe on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Yahoo NBA, right there if you haven't already, and go. Make sure you listen to us on all the audio platforms, rate and review. Please, 5 stars, as Bomani Jones likes to say. If you do not give me 5 stars, I am liking to call you a hater. So, Dan, that was fun. And I want to give a shout out to Brad and Sarah behind the scenes and Emmy, everybody who works on this show. Thank you so much on the production team at Yahoo Sports. You guys had 83 points today. Okay, you deserve a place on the leaderboard right there with Will Chamberlain. All right, that's it. That's it for the show. See you next week, Dan, and let's get some sleep, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. The little number is how much sleep we've been getting lately, but that's
Ugh.
we wouldn't have it any other way. All right, folks. See you next week.